welcome all of you. Good afternoon. I have to first ask, was any of you at Dennis's talk earlier this morning about design systems? Nice, so you can see this hopefully as sort of an extension to what he was telling. We have a bit of overlapping, but I think he did more of an in detail and I do more of a high over approach, so you will get extra value, I promise. Thanks for joining. As I said, nice of you to join me. And it's actually fun because I was here last year on stage and I was telling you a story about a component library. And as we learned from Dennis, a component library is not a design system, but we made a couple of leaps, I think, even last year at Jumbo, and we are actually doing a good job in turning that thing that was a component library and all of the surrounding tooling into an actual design system. So what the funny thing was as well is that I was doing that talk about the component library and I got to chat with more organizations and people from different organizations, different shapes and sizes as well, about design systems and how they were scaffolded out in organizations or how they were used, how they were set up. And the interesting thing was to me that I saw a lot of patterns emerging and I started to think about these a bit and chatting a bit more, and I came up with a maturity model, which we'll get to in a minute. So we can get started now. And to give you this is going to be a short slide. I am from Jumbo, so this is the corporate presentation that you will be having. This gives you a bit of context of our organization. So we have, in our tech department at least, we have, I think it's 400 individuals right now. But this is basically the shape and size where we are developing our design system, where we are applying our design system. So before we get into the matter at hand, so what is a design system? If you went to Dennis's talk, you already know this, so this is good. For the people who weren't there, I came up with a definition that's very close to Dennis's one, so we did not steal any of our content. But I think we can all agree that anybody who has ever worked with a design system, you know what it's used for, right? And this whole bundle of text basically states that it is a means of developers and designers aligning and communicating with each other. It's also a means of aligning with stakeholders, and it is a means of working efficiently and delivering your products. So that's what a design system is, and I think we can all agree on that. Now, so with all of those patterns I saw emerging, I thought I can come up with a model for scaffolding, or coming up with a model for describing the maturity of a design system. And so this is a work in progress, and it is good that you are here because I would also like to I have your input to validate this model with me. So I would really love your input, and please come find me after this talk to chat about this, because I'm looking for input on testing this maturity model with you guys and girls. So why does this matter to you, to us as developers? So design systems, like the second bullet point, I think captures it best. So they are inevitable. If you do your job as a developer, you will at some point encounter a design system. It's very similar, I think, to the rite of passage of every developer having to encounter a custom-built CMS or even writing a custom-built CMS. Everybody at some point will encounter design systems. So they're really important. They play a vital role in our deliveries. Which also means that having a model helps you in understanding design systems a bit better. It also helps you in explaining what design systems are to other people, so help them understand. And if you have a solid model, which we will work on during this talk, I hope, you also know, well, if you know where you are, you also know what you need to do in order to improve, or what steps you can take in order to make your design system a next level. So that's what we'll be focusing on. And as I said, I've identified a couple of stages of maturity, and we'll go over them. So obviously, these stages that I'm going to be describing, they're like gradients. You can be in between different sets of maturity. It doesn't really, so you're not fully in one stage, but you can adopt different parts from different stages. For the model, it is good to have these different stages identified. And this being a space-themed conference, I came up with this analogy, star systems, which I think really works in terms of design systems. Because as design systems and star systems, they both start really nebulously, in this case very literal. And they start to form into something that has a bit more structure and also starts to influence their surroundings. So I think this is a perfect analogy. And why not? Let's get started with our first stage. Surprise, surprise. So the nebula stage. And at this point, I don't think that you can talk about a design system per se. This is just a random collection of patterns that may be used or reused. Well, it says it right here. So you do have a design or you have a company branding that's going to be applied to digital. It's not really specifically designed for digital. You just do whatever you can in order to deliver digital products. So there's no design system at this point. What you also see, handcrafted elements here, is basically an elegant way of saying copy and pasting components or elements across your applications or across your code. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it works. If you want to scale up a bit, maybe you use a third-party library like a Bootstrap or any other UI library that you can theme to fit within your your company's brand, which is a good way to get started and to get moving with putting things on production early. So in this case, there's also very little adoption or recognition of a design system in the organization. That's basically because it's not yet a design system, but it has the makings of becoming a design system. So the next stage, I think, is Blue Dwarf here, lovely. What you see is that the design is more tailored to the digital capabilities that you want to unlock. So there's a bit more alignment there. And you see a bit, as it says here, fragmented development, which means that you have maybe a component library. This is the first case where this pops up. And that third-party library that you were using, you styled it to the extent of to its limits, basically. If you want to do any more custom-built interfaces on that component library or that third-party component library or UI library, you will hit the limits. So you need to make some decisions if you want to exceed this stage. And what I mean with the loosely coupled collection of development patterns, those are basically the things not involving UI components, but validators, linting rules that you have, those sort of things. They also come in play in this beginnings of a design system. And what is good to know is, or to realize at least, is that this is like a bottom-up approach. So this is driven by developers, by designers, because they have a need to work efficiently. Which we'll come to, we'll circle back to this later. And I think this is the first case where we can actually talk about a design system. And at this point, you have design and development. They are aligned in this case. So when they are talking about components, they actually mean the same thing, which is very good if you want to develop for the future. At this point, you will also need to introduce documentation. And this is also part of it. Probably also reflects the growth of your organization. So if you want to onboard new developers to use and adopt your design system, you need to make sure that they understand how to use it. So you want to document how you use a component, how you implement this and that. So this is the first case where documentation starts popping up. This is also the first case where you see a more of a culture change because you are getting a bit more, you're spending a bit more effort on this. Basically means that you will want everybody that is on board with like your developers, your designers, maybe even other stakeholders to take a look at the design system and see if they can contribute to make it even better. And if you can make it even better, then you get to the next stage. And I think this is like fully design system. If you're here, you're already very comfortable. There is a stage after this, as we have seen, but this is already a very comfortable position to be in. Again, you have even more closer alignment between design and development. Maybe they even collaborate on building new components or defining new components. Designers and developers start to understand each other, which is very good. And the documentation will also be of a better level. Like you may have a storybook, like an interactive sandbox where designers can try out components and test them. This is also a new stage for your organization culture-wise in the terms that you need to spend and allocate resources on your design system in order for it to be maintainable and to grow. And having allocated resources means that the business will probably want to have some KPIs or they want to measure that whatever resources are being spent, that you actually return something on investment. So from the bottom-up approach we saw in earlier stages, at this point you will also have to interact with top-down approaches or other stakeholders from different levels of the company. It's a squeaky floor. And this is the final stage that I've at least identified so far. There may be dark matter beyond this or black holes, I'm not sure. So if you know, then please contact me. But this is like the final stage. You have platform agnostic development here. So whatever you build in your design system, your designs, they are suitable for web, for app. It doesn't really matter. It's all part of your design system and your design systems flow. That also means that you align cross-platform, obviously, and the developer experience at this point makes it the default way of working. It probably already was, but this makes the developer experience is of such a high level that everybody can contribute and work with your design system. You can think about CLI tooling, which helps you scaffold out new components, or such a good documentation or onboarding process that any junior can, from day one, start to contribute or understand the design system. The design system at this point has such a high value, like it's a supernova, so it's really big, it's really important, and it affects a lot of its surroundings, which also warrants a strong governance around the design system. And that means that you want to have a stable system because lots of departments and development teams are depending on your design system at this point. That also leads to probably introducing sort of a layered or tiered system where you have core components that are very vital to your design system and you want to have a lot of stability there. And you will also have components that are less important across the organization, and you want them to be able to have development teams iterate on them or make changes with that without affecting the core components. So that's why tiers come into play. I can prepare a different presentation about tiers, so I'll just skip over what that exactly means. If you want to know more, find me, because I'm looking at the time and I see I have to hurry. Properties and capabilities, I can just quickly show you all of these terms. And so you would expect, these are not necessarily directly tied to a certain stage of maturity, but you could reasonably expect that the more mature your system is, the more of these capabilities you will unlock. This is not the whole list. There are more. I see people taking pictures, so I'll keep it up for just a second. Yeah. And from what we've been doing in the past year, we have some practical tips. I don't see anybody waving a sign, so I'm just going to continue quickly. So as I said, we had our innovation was in the beginning more driven by necessity. So that meant that we had no strategic vision whatsoever, which also meant that we had to backtrack on certain implementations or changes that we did, which is fine. What does it say here? So the system reflects culture, which is something that we already know. I think as developers, we're familiar with that concept, which means that the design system will follow how your organization culture looks. It also means you can introduce small changes into your organizational culture if that's needed, but you can only do so much. As a diligent PO, not every change is equally important. So some things you want to introduce, you need to put them in the freezer because they don't deliver value right away. And the last one is really important because the initial stages were driven by like a bottom-up. You are surrounded by your stakeholders, your developers, your designers, your UX designers. Everybody is already aware of the design system. So you can use them to train them into adopting every stage that you want. And you can also gain valuable insights of them. I actually think I have to stop right now, otherwise other people will run out of time. So please, I have so much to tell you, but I don't have any more time. So I have to end it, unfortunately. Come find me afterwards for a follow-up. Thank you so much.